Hello everyone, I'm JJ, aka the INT programmer, aka the INTP programmer. In my first video here, I'm going to talk about what INTPs love and hate. Not everything here applies to every single INTP, including myself, so feel free to leave a comment if you have a new insight to share, or if there's something you don't quite agree with. The first one is programming. Yes, this is a programming channel for INTPs, so it's very likely you're interested in programming if you've made it this far. It's no secret that INTPs are naturally gifted at this due to our love for logic and systems, which makes us naturally motivated to learn programming. Once we learn programming, we can use it to recognize people's faces and pictures, remotely control electronic devices based on a set of rules, harness machine learning to create intelligent computer programs, and much more. Doing so is challenging even for an INTP, but most of us are equipped with the logical aptitude and ability to see the big picture when it comes to systems. Next, the internet. INTPs are one of the rarest Myers-Briggs types. If all types are uniformly distributed, we'd be 6.25% of the population. But various surveys estimate that INTPs can be anywhere between 1 to 8% of the global population. This bias happens because we use the internet more often than other types, except maybe INTJs. And we end up finding and taking these surveys in much greater numbers. Go to any online forum or community and ask what people's Myers-Briggs types are in the off-topic section. You'll likely find a disproportionate number of INTPs. Any INTP knows that face-to-face socialization is not one of our strong suits, but the internet fortunately mitigates this weakness of ours and allows us to communicate with other people with similar interests, outside of geographical, political, and even cultural boundaries. INTPs are also drawn to the latest technologies. We tend to be early adopters when technologies like the internet, online video, social networks, smartphones, etc. came out. Our minds operate on a very small time scale, and it's very common for INTPs to be dissatisfied when their favorite app or web page is taking a fraction of a second longer to load than before, and this often prompts them to upgrade their phone or computer. In fact, Facebook even invented a new unit of time called a flick, which is about 1/1000th of a second. Something of that time scale will only matter to a tech or internet-obsessed INTP. Unstructured alone time. Picture this. You're by yourself and you got nothing planned. Most normal people will freak out and think they need to be doing something or hanging out with someone. But I, as an INTP, relish in these moments in life. Of course, I wouldn't be sitting there doing nothing the whole time, but I just won't have anything specific planned for that time slot in my schedule. I could choose to run some errands, clean up the house, or more likely go on my computer. But just the feeling that you're by yourself and free to be yourself without the constraints of a schedule is worth $1,000,000. Libraries and other quiet places like bookstores. It's a common misconception that we like to stay at home all the time. We don't. But when we're out, we still like to be alone, usually reading a book or working on our laptops. And there's no perfect place for this than your local library. Bookstores used to be popular for this, but closing day by day, thanks to the magic of Amazon and, ironically, the INTPs who work for them. Cafes may work for some INTPs, but many will find them too loud and crowded. Making it on our own. For many INTPs, achieving something just doesn't feel the same if we had sought out or gotten significant assistance along the way, out of the generosity of others. When we try to land that dream job, it's so much more satisfying if we had gotten the interview and the offer after sending our resume online rather than through a personal connection. Similarly, it feels absolutely euphoric to start a new company using our own resources, including our own time, money, and effort, than to get external funding from, say, venture capitalists, or free or cheap labor and money from our family and friends. What INTPs dislike. Now that you know what most INTPs like, let's talk about what really drives us crazy. Remember, we're logical, creative people who prefer being alone and with minimal structure. So in general, anything that deviates from this norm is likely to get on our nerves. Small talk. Small talk is a necessary evil and social grace when meeting someone. It's pretty much hardwired in our DNAs, and it would be very weird and awkward if removed. Even if I were meeting another INTP, I'd still probably start out with some small talk, since that's what we've been taught to automatically do from an early age, even though most of us see it as largely a waste of time. So fortunately, other INTPs are likely to keep small talk short and to the point. Phone calls. Oh boy, this is one of my least favorite means of communication. Calling someone on the phone not only interrupts whichever task I was working on at the time, but it also requires you to respond on the fly, not to mention the mandatory yet time-consuming introductory and concluding small talk. I do recognize there are legitimate instances where the phone is the best means of communication, especially when things are urgent. But I avoid the phone like the plague, to the fullest extent possible in life, if I have any viable alternatives like email, texting, social media, etc. Scheduling. If you want to know why I declined to meet with you for coffee, or even to go to your party, it almost never has to do with my introversion. And I'm sorry if I come off as being rude. Rather, I find scheduling events, especially during my free time, to be a nightmare. Schedules usually mean I have to be somewhere at a certain time, and if I'm aware that I need to be somewhere in the near future, it's a lot harder to enjoy the activities I like to pursue in my free time, because I'm no longer free to spend my time on my own terms in the near future. Interruptions. This is especially true when I'm programming or doing anything mentally intensive. When you've been interrupted from deep thought, it's just very exhausting and time-consuming to bring yourself back to the same state of deep thought again. This is also why I don't pick up phone calls when I'm doing a lot of deep thinking like programming. And I'll often do my deep thinking and programming on the days when I don't have anything scheduled, like a party or a meeting. Paperwork. Maybe I'm overreacting here, but anytime I need to fill out some paperwork, there's often a bit of cryptic legalese at the bottom that I could never bother to understand in a million years. And I fear that if I were to fill the form out incorrectly or not completely, horrible things will happen to me. Problem is, a lot of paperwork involves asking for things that I may deem trivial, like why I had spent $25 on food 2 years and 57 days ago, for example. I would think that in this day and age, when the government and Facebook collects and shares so much data on us and our impending loss of privacy, that at least one of the benefits we'd reap is no longer having to fill out these tedious forms, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Last but not least, the Hive Mentality. The Hive Mentality is the phenomenon where people only listen to others with similar viewpoints as theirs and start automatically accepting them without critical analysis. This is especially common in politics, but can happen within nations, cultures, subcultures, and other subgroups. You basically end up being brainwashed into a narrow way of thinking and become increasingly resistant to breaking out of it. INTPs dislike this if they can recognize that it's even happening to them, since it shuts down critical thinking, which is what most INTPs value. Even though this is a pet peeve of mine, I don't think I'm completely free of it either, due to my own cultural upbringings and influencing factors from social media.